Research is hard, but your tools should not be. Subthesis.com is the free alternative to expensive software. Whether you need to calculate Chromebox alpha or organize your field notes, Subthesis has a tool for it. No paywalls and no registration required. Check the link in the description and let's dive into today's lesson. Welcome back to the PM Playbook. If you've been in project management for more than 5 minutes, you've experienced this. Requirements that seemed solid at the start mutate, expand, and contradict themselves throughout the project. Today we're going to tackle how to capture requirements that actually stick. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Stakeholders often don't know what they want. They think they do, but they can't articulate it precisely. They use phrases like, "I'll know it when I see it." And even when they can articulate it, what they want changes as the project progresses. They learn more about the possibilities. They see early deliverables and realize they want something different. The business environment shifts. This isn't a character flaw, it's human nature. Our job as project managers isn't to eliminate this reality, it's to manage it. Before we dive into techniques, let's clarify the types of requirements. Business requirements answer why we're doing the project. They connect to organizational goals and value creation. Functional requirements describe what the solution should do. These are the features and capabilities. Non-functional requirements describe how well it should do it. Performance, security, usability, reliability. Constraints are the boundaries within which we must operate: budget limits, timeline constraints, technology restrictions, regulatory requirements. Confusing these types leads to confusion in the project. Keep them separate and clear. Requirements don't appear on their own. You have to draw them out from stakeholders. This process is called elicitation. Let me share the most effective techniques. The most fundamental technique is the stakeholder interview. This is a one-on-one conversation designed to understand what each stakeholder needs. Use open-ended questions to explore. Instead of, "Do you need this feature?" ask, "What would make your job easier?" Listen more than you talk. Let stakeholders explain in their own words. Use follow-up questions to clarify and dig deeper. When they say something vague like, "It should be fast," ask how fast. What happens if it takes 5 seconds versus 2 seconds? Document what you hear and validate your understanding by repeating it back to them. Here are 4 powerful questions for requirement interviews. What problem are we trying to solve? This gets to the root cause, not the surface symptoms. What does success look like to you? This reveals individual expectations that might differ from official objectives. What's the worst thing that could happen if we get this wrong? This surfaces fears and risk perceptions. What will you do differently after this is implemented? This tests whether the stakeholder actually understands how the solution will be used. These questions often reveal requirements that wouldn't emerge from a standard discussion of features. Workshops bring multiple stakeholders together to define requirements as a group. The value of workshops is that they surface conflicts immediately. When the sales team and the operations team are in the same room, you quickly discover where their requirements clash. Workshops also build consensus. Decisions made together tend to stick better than decisions made in isolation. Use visual techniques like story mapping or process diagramming to keep everyone engaged, and always time box your workshops. Energy declines after about 2 hours. Better to run multiple focus sessions than one marathon meeting. Observation means watching users perform their current tasks. This technique is invaluable because there's often a gap between what people say they do and what they actually do. Watch for workarounds. When someone copies data from one system into a spreadsheet and then into another system, that workaround reveals an integration requirement. Notice frustrations. Where do people sigh, complain, or make mistakes? Those are opportunities for improvement. The gap between stated requirements and observed behavior often reveals hidden requirements that users take for granted and wouldn't think to mention. Prototyping means building quick throwaway mock-ups that stakeholders can react to. Remember, "I'll know it when I see it"? Prototypes make that possible. Show stakeholders a rough sketch of the interface. Show them a mock report. Show them a simplified workflow. Their reactions will reveal requirements more quickly than any document review. Prototypes can be paper sketches, wireframes, or clickable mock-ups. The key is speed. You're not building the solution, you're testing understanding. Prototyping often surfaces requirements in hours that would take weeks to discover through documentation. Once you've elicited requirements, you need to document them in a way that's clear, complete, and usable. Let me share some approaches that work in the real world. The user story format has become popular for good reason. It forces you to think about who needs the capability, what they need, and why. As a sales manager, I want to see team pipeline by region so that I can identify territories that need attention. This format is simple enough that anyone can write and understand it. It's testable because the acceptance criteria are implicit, and it's user-focused, keeping the emphasis on value rather than technical implementation. User stories work well for functional requirements that can be broken into small, independent pieces. Every requirement needs acceptance criteria. These are specific, testable conditions that determine whether the requirement has been met. A common format is, given a specific context, when a specific action occurs, then a specific outcome should result. Given a logged-in user with manager permissions, when they click the regional pipeline report, then they should see data for all territories in their region. Acceptance criteria eliminate ambiguity about what done means. They should be agreed with stakeholders before development starts, not after. This prevents the dreaded "that's not what I meant" moment during testing. Not all requirements are equally important. Prioritization frameworks help you make this explicit. Moscow categorizes requirements as must-have, should-have, could-have, or won't-have for this release. The value versus effort matrix plots requirements based on their business value and implementation effort, highlighting quick wins and long-term investments. The key is that not everything can be high priority. If everything is critical, nothing is critical. Use prioritization frameworks to force difficult decisions early when it's cheap to make them, rather than late when cutting scope is painful and visible. The requirements traceability matrix is a more formal documentation approach. It links each requirement to its source, such as which stakeholder requested it, and to the deliverables that satisfy it. The matrix ensures nothing is lost in translation from request to implementation. It also makes it obvious when something has been added that wasn't originally requested. For change impact analysis, the matrix shows which deliverables are affected by a proposed requirement change. In regulated industries like healthcare and finance, traceability isn't optional, it's required for compliance. Now let's talk about what happens after requirements are documented. How do you keep them from constantly changing? Requirements creep is scope creep's sneaky cousin. It happens when requirements slowly expand in detail and complexity without formal change requests. Requirements change for several reasons. Stakeholders learn more about what's possible as the project progresses, and their expectations evolve. The business environment shifts. A competitor launches a new feature, and suddenly you need it too. Requirements that seemed clear at the start were actually ambiguous, and that ambiguity surfaces during implementation. New stakeholders emerge who weren't consulted initially, and they bring new needs. Some of these changes are legitimate and should be accommodated. Others are scope creep in disguise. The key is having a process to distinguish between them. A baseline freeze establishes a clear deadline after which requirements are considered final. Before the freeze date, requirements can be added and modified freely. After the freeze, changes require formal approval through change control. The freeze isn't about saying no to all changes. It's about switching from free-form exploration to controlled modification. This distinction matters. Stakeholders who know a freeze is coming will prioritize getting their requirements in before the deadline. Communicate the freeze date clearly and early. Send reminders as it approaches. Make the cutoff unambiguous. After the baseline freeze, every change request should receive impact analysis before approval. Document the effect on timeline. Will this delay delivery? By how much? Document the effect on budget. What additional cost will this incur? Document the effect on other requirements. Does this change conflict with or complicate anything already planned? When stakeholders see the true cost of their change request, many will withdraw it. They didn't realize the ripple effects. Impact analysis transforms "I want this" into "I want this and I'm willing to pay these costs." That's a much higher bar. When stakeholders request changes, never say no directly. It damages relationships and creates adversaries. Instead, say yes, and here's what it will take. We can absolutely add that feature, and it will extend the timeline by 3 weeks and require an additional $50,000 in budget. Offer alternatives. We could do a simplified version that takes only 1 week. We could defer this to phase 2. Then let the stakeholder decide. Often, faced with the true cost, they'll either withdraw the request or choose a cheaper alternative. You've maintained the relationship while protecting the project. Create a Phase 2 list for requirements that are good ideas but don't fit the current scope. When stakeholders propose something valuable that would blow the timeline or budget, add it to the Phase 2 list. This has multiple benefits. Stakeholders feel heard. Their idea isn't being rejected, it's being deferred. You build a backlog for future planning. After Phase 1 launches, you already have a prioritized list of enhancements. And honestly, some Phase 2 items will never happen. Priorities shift. The idea that seemed important during Phase 1 becomes irrelevant later. That's fine. The list served its purpose. Build formal review gates into your project process. These are checkpoints where requirements are validated and signed off before proceeding to the next phase. A requirements review gate might occur before design begins. All stakeholders review the documented requirements and confirm they're complete and correct. Sign-off is required to proceed. Review gates catch problems early when they're cheap to fix. They also create commitment. Once a stakeholder has signed off on requirements, they're less likely to request changes later. They've already agreed that the requirements are complete. Let me warn you about common mistakes. Assuming silence means agreement is dangerous. Stakeholders who don't respond to requirement documents may not have read them. Confirm understanding explicitly. Accepting vague requirements under time pressure creates problems later. The system should be user-friendly is not a requirement. Push for specificity. Skipping validation with actual users is a recipe for failure. Subject matter experts and users are different. Get real users involved. And documenting solutions instead of needs locks you into specific implementations. Capture what users need to accomplish, not how you think they should accomplish it. Take a moment to perform a health check on a current project. Review your requirements documentation. Are the requirements specific and testable? Could a tester write a test case from each requirement? Are they prioritized? Do you know which ones are must-haves versus nice-to-haves? Is there a change control process for requirements after the baseline? If you answered no to any of these, you have work to do. Requirements management isn't optional, it's foundational. Let's summarize today's lecture. Use multiple elicitation techniques including interviews, workshops, observation, and prototyping to reveal complete requirements. Different techniques surface different insights. Use user stories and acceptance criteria to prevent ambiguity. If you can't test it, it's not a requirement, it's a wish. Use baseline freezes and change control to prevent requirements creep. Changes should be welcomed, but they should also be controlled. We've now completed Module 1, Foundations Without the Fluff. In Module 2, we move into planning that survives first contact with reality. Lecture 5 will cover the Work Breakdown Structure, or WBS. You'll learn how to decompose projects into manageable pieces that can be estimated, assigned, and tracked. Thank you for completing the Foundations module. You now have the tools to define success, map stakeholders, and capture requirements that stick. In Module 2, we'll build on these foundations with practical planning techniques. I'll see you in the next lecture. Research is hard, but your tools should not be. Subthesis.com is the free alternative to expensive software. Whether you need to calculate Chromebox Alpha or organize your field notes, Subthesis has a tool for it. No paywalls and no registration required. Check the link in the description and let's dive into today's lesson.